Example 2 is a slightly different take on the same type of question. In this case, as we read through, we see that we're talking specifically about just numbers and how we can kind of manipulate them. So we're not talking about within a context of area and perimeter and measurement. We're just talking about numbers and how they kind of exist and can be related to each other. So it says two numbers have a sum of 20. So automatically, I know that I need to be watching for some key language here. So sum is always referring to total. So that means adding. Does the sum of their squares have a maximum or minimum? Okay, squares meaning to the power of 2. So we need to determine max or min, and then we need to actually identify all the values involved. So we start by needing to say, okay, well, we have two numbers. X is a number, and a Y is another number. Okay, so I can say that X plus Y, their sum, is 20. But then we talk about x squared plus y squared in the second sentence, and it either equals a maximum or a minimum. Well, how can I manipulate this? Because again, I'm dealing with a scenario where I have 3 variables to work with, that x squared plus y squared equals m. 3 things I don't know, and that doesn't work for me. 2 I can manipulate a little bit, but 3 definitely not. So again, I'm going to end up in a scenario where I need to just rearrange to substitute in. So I'm going to say x is equal to 20 minus y. And I'm going to substitute this in for x squared here. So instead I'm going to have 20 minus y squared plus y squared equals my maximum or minimum. And I'll figure out which one that is, still. So I've got this all plugged in, and okay, great, looking good so far. Well, based on this, I'm going to have to expand this out. So I've got 400 minus 40y plus y squared plus my y squared. So all of this is coming from my perfect square. If you don't believe me, you can do it over here on the side. 20 minus y. Remember, when it's squared, it's multiplied by itself, and we have to FOIL it up from there. Okay, so once I've got that set up, great, except it's not actually helping me talk about maximum and minimum because it's not in vertex form. So again, I'm going to set this up so it's 2y squared. So just so I'm going to rearrange it so it looks more like general form. Minus 40y plus 400 is my max or min. And I'm going to complete this. Y squared minus 20y, leaving my 400 out here. Well, half of 20 is 10, squared is 100. But I've really added 200, so I'm going to have to subtract 200 over here. So that was me with 2y minus 10 squared plus 200 gives me my maximum value. So if we look at this kind of scenario, well, now I'm seeing that it's opening down upward, so I'm going to have a minimum. And my minimum value is going to be at my vertex, which is at 10 and 200. So when I go back to the original question, it asks, determine the maximum or minimum and the numbers. Well, this is my y value and this is my minimum. So when I go to fill this in and write my final statement, it is a minimum. Y minimum value is 200, y is 10, and x is also going to be 10. And I figure that out by plugging it back in here. But there we go. Answered my question. So again, that trick of defining my variables, creating my equations, setting it up in a format so that there's only truly two variables present, and completing the square in order to optimize that maximum or minimum piece.